That's
Alexander
right,
Crane
sweetie.
had
That is a
everything money
red
could buy except
triangle.
time.
And
As
look
the
who is
founder of
here to
Crane
see our
Industries, a
wonderful
global
shapes
investment
today.
firm managing over $50 billion, his life was measured in conference calls, board meetings, and red-eye flights between continents. At 37, he was one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country, and the price of that success was steep. He barely knew his own children. 3 years ago, Alexander's world had shattered when his wife, Caroline, died during childbirth. She'd been carrying triplets, a miracle pregnancy after years of fertility treatments. The joy of 3 healthy babies, 2 boys and a girl, had been destroyed by the tragedy of losing the woman he loved. Alexander had been devastated. Caroline had been his college sweetheart, his partner in building his empire, his everything. When she died, something inside him broke. He threw himself into work with manic intensity, using business as an escape from grief. The triplets, Oliver, Lucas, and Emma, were cared for by an army of nannies, nurses, and staff. Alexander provided everything they needed: the best nursery, the finest clothes, top pediatricians, educational toys, every advantage money could buy. Everything except himself. In 3 years, Alexander had never once put his children to bed, never fed them breakfast, never played with them for more than a few distracted minutes. He loved them, in the abstract way you love something precious you keep locked away. But he couldn't bear to look at them without seeing Caroline, without remembering what their arrival had cost him. So he stayed away, traveled constantly, built his empire bigger and bigger, as if enough success could fill the void Caroline had left. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And please, comment below and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. The nannies came and went. Alexander hired the best agencies, paid premium rates, and provided excellent working conditions. But the turnover was constant. Some nannies found the job too demanding. 3 toddlers were exhausting under any circumstances, and these particular children were bright, energetic, and required constant supervision. Others left because they felt uncomfortable in the emotionally cold mansion. The children's father was never there. The house, despite its luxury, felt empty. A few nannies tried to talk to Alexander about his children's development, their need for their father, but he shut down those conversations immediately. He paid them to care for the children, not give him parenting advice. 6 months ago, the latest nanny had quit after just 3 weeks. The employment agency sent over 15 candidates. Alexander rejected them all. Too young, too old, too chatty, not experienced enough, overqualified, and likely to leave soon. He was impossible to please. Then Maria Santos walked into his office for an interview. Maria was 42, with warm brown eyes and a calm presence that immediately put people at ease. She'd been working with children for 20 years, including several positions with high-net-worth families. Her references were impeccable. More than her resume, though, there was something about Maria that made Alexander pause. When she spoke about children, her face lit up with genuine love and enthusiasm. "Children aren't a job to me, Mr. Crane," Maria had said during the interview. "They're not a task to be managed or a problem to be solved. They're people. Small people who need guidance, love, and patience. My philosophy is simple: every child deserves to be seen, heard, and valued for who they are." Alexander had been skeptical. Every nanny said something similar. But Maria's next words caught his attention. "I know about your wife, Mr. Crane. I'm very sorry for your loss. And I understand that you're busy building your company. I'm not here to judge how you cope with grief. I'm here to make sure your children are loved, safe, and thriving. That's my only agenda." Alexander had hired her on the spot. Maria moved into the staff quarters the next day and took over care of the triplets, who were now 3 years old. The transformation was gradual but remarkable. Within weeks, the household staff noticed changes. The triplets, who had been fussy and difficult with previous nannies, seemed calmer, happier. Their tantrums decreased. Their laughter increased. They started sleeping through the night consistently. Maria established routines that gave the children security. Same wake-up time every day. Healthy meals at consistent hours. Educational activities mixed with creative play. Outdoor time in the mansion's gardens. Story time before bed. Everything structured but never rigid, with room for spontaneity and joy. The head housekeeper, Margaret, who'd worked for the Crane family for 15 years, pulled Alexander aside during one of his brief visits home. "Mr. Crane, I think you should know that Maria is extraordinary with the children. They've blossomed under her care. They're thriving." Alexander had nodded, pleased that the nanny situation was finally stable, and gone back to work. He didn't ask for details. Didn't ask what thriving meant. Just trusted that his money had bought his children adequate care. Maria never tried to force Alexander to engage with his children. She understood grief, understood that everyone processed loss differently. But she made sure the children knew their father loved them, even if he wasn't present. She showed them photos of Caroline and Alexander together, told them stories about their mother that the staff had shared, and gently kept their father's memory alive in their daily lives. "Daddy's working very hard," Maria would tell them when they asked why he was gone so much. "He's making sure you have everything you need. He loves you very much." The triplets, still too young to understand fully, accepted this explanation. But they bonded deeply with Maria. She became their primary attachment figure, the person they ran to when hurt, the one they wanted when scared, the arms they sought for comfort. To Oliver, Lucas, and Emma, Maria wasn't just the nanny. She was the closest thing they had to a mother. 6 months passed. Alexander traveled to London, Tokyo, Dubai, Singapore. He closed deals worth hundreds of millions. His company's value doubled. Forbes wrote a profile calling him the man who turned grief into gold. He was everywhere except home. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. Alexander was in Sao Paulo for a week of meetings with South American investors. The first day's meetings wrapped up early when the Brazilian CEO he was meeting with had a family emergency. Alexander found himself with an unexpected free evening. He could have filled it with work. Caught up on emails, reviewed reports, made calls. But something made him hesitate. He pulled out his phone and looked at the last photo he'd seen of his children. It was from 3 months ago, sent by Maria in her weekly update email that he rarely read thoroughly. 3 small faces grinning at the camera, covered in paint from some art project. He didn't recognize them. In 3 months, they'd changed so much he barely knew what his own children looked like. The realization hit Alexander like a physical blow. 3 years. His children were 3 years old, and he'd missed almost all of it. He'd missed first words, first steps, first everything. He'd been so consumed with running from grief that he'd abandoned the only pieces of Caroline he had left. Alexander made a decision. He called his assistant. "Cancel the rest of the Sao Paulo meetings. I'm flying home tonight." His assistant was shocked. Alexander never canceled business meetings. Never. "Sir, are you sure? The Fernandez deal will wait. I'm going home to see my children." The private jet was ready within 2 hours. Alexander spent the long flight thinking about what he'd say to the triplets. Would they even recognize him? Would they be scared of this stranger who was technically their father? The plane landed at 6 a.m. Alexander drove straight to his estate, a massive property in Connecticut. He let himself in quietly, not wanting to wake anyone. The house was silent. Alexander walked through rooms he barely remembered, heading toward the children's wing. He'd had the entire 3rd floor converted into a child-friendly space when the triplets were born, but he'd rarely been up there. As he climbed the stairs, he heard something that made him stop. Laughter. Children's laughter, bright and joyful. And a woman's voice, warm and animated. Alexander checked his watch. 6:47 a.m. Why were the children awake this early? And what was happening up there? He walked quietly down the hall toward the sound. The door to the playroom was open. Alexander stood in the doorway, and what he saw made him freeze completely. The large playroom had been transformed into what looked like a classroom. Educational posters covered the walls, alphabet, numbers, colors, shapes. A small reading corner had been created with pillows and a bookshelf full of children's books. Art supplies were organized in clear bins. Musical instruments were arranged neatly in one corner. And in the center of all this, on a large rug, sat Maria with his 3 children. They were in a circle, and Maria was leading them through what appeared to be a lesson. But it wasn't like any lesson Alexander had ever imagined. Maria held up a card with a picture on it. "Oh, my loves, what's this?" "Triangle," Emma shouted enthusiastically. "Very good. And how many sides does a triangle have?" 3 small hands shot up, fingers extended. 1, 2, 3. They counted together. "Perfect. Now, can anyone find something in our room that's a triangle?" The children scrambled up, running around the playroom looking at everything. Lucas pointed at a musical instrument. "The triangle instrument." "Excellent." Maria clapped. "Oliver, do you see one?" Oliver thought hard, his small face scrunched in concentration. Then he pointed at the roof of the toy house. "That." Maria beamed at him. "You're so smart. That is a triangle." "Emma?" Emma was standing by the wall, pointing at a shape poster. "Right here." Alexander watched, transfixed. His children were learning. Actually learning. They were engaged, excited, thinking critically. And Maria was teaching them with such joy and patience. "Now," Maria continued, "let's learn a new shape. This is called a rectangle. Can you say rectangle?" "Rectangle," 3 small voices echoed. "A rectangle has 4 sides, but watch, 2 sides are long and 2 sides are short. See?" She traced the card with her finger. "Let's count the sides together." They counted, little fingers following along. Then Maria stood up. "Now we're going to play a game. We're going to be rectangles with our bodies. Everyone stand up and stretch your arms out long, like the long sides. Then we'll make our legs close together like the short sides." The children giggled as they tried to form rectangle shapes with their bodies. Maria laughed with them, gently adjusting their poses, encouraging their efforts. "You're all perfect rectangles. Now, let's march around the room like rectangles. Long arms out." They paraded around, laughing and learning simultaneously. Alexander felt something crack open in his chest. This was education, yes, but it was also play. It was love. It was attention. It was everything children needed. After the shape game, Maria gathered them back on the rug. "Okay, my brilliant students, now it's time for our gratitude circle. Who wants to go first today?" Lucas raised his hand eagerly. "I'm grateful for pancakes." Maria smiled. "Pancakes are delicious. I'm grateful you enjoyed breakfast." "Emma?" "I'm grateful for my teddy bear because he keeps me safe at night." "That's beautiful, sweetie. Teddy bears are wonderful friends." "Oliver?" Oliver thought for a moment. "I'm grateful for you, Miss Maria, because you play with us and teach us and you smell nice." Maria's eyes glistened with tears. She pulled Oliver into a hug. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm grateful for you too. For all of you. You make my heart happy every single day." Alexander felt tears running down his face. When was the last time he'd cried? Not since Caroline's funeral. But watching this woman love his children with such pure, genuine affection broke something loose inside him. Maria stood up. "All right, my loves, let's transition to art time. Today we're going to paint pictures of our favorite things. But first, everyone needs to go potty and wash hands. Who can show me they know how to line up properly?" The children scrambled into a line, each standing behind the other. Maria praised their organization skills and led them toward the bathroom. That's when she saw Alexander standing in the doorway. Maria froze for just a second, then quickly composed herself. "Mr. Crane, we didn't know you were home." The children turned and saw the tall stranger. They moved closer to Maria instinctively, holding onto her legs, suddenly shy. Alexander's heart broke. His own children didn't recognize him. "I came home early," Alexander managed to say, his voice rough with emotion. I wanted to see the children." Maria's face softened. She understood immediately what he must be feeling. She knelt down beside the triplets. "Remember the pictures I showed you of Daddy? This is your daddy. He came home to visit you." Emma peeked out from behind Maria. "That's our daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart. Can you say hello?" "Hello," Emma whispered. Lucas was braver. "Hi, Daddy. Did you bring us presents?" Alexander laughed. a sound that felt foreign in his throat. Not today, buddy. But I brought myself. Is that okay? Oliver, the most thoughtful of the three, studied Alexander seriously. You look like the pictures. But you're taller. I am tall, Alexander agreed. You're all much bigger than the last time I saw you. Maria gently encouraged the children. Why don't you show Daddy the shapes you learned? Emma, can you tell Daddy about rectangles? Emma stepped forward slightly. Rectangles have 4 sides. 2 long and 2 short. That's wonderful, Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion. You're so smart. Lucas joined in. I can count to 20. Can you show me? Alexander asked. Lucas counted carefully, using his fingers and occasionally looking at Maria for encouragement. When he finished, Alexander clapped. That's amazing, Lucas. I'm so proud of you. Oliver was still cautious, but he offered, I can spell my name. Oliver. You're all brilliant, Alexander said, and meant it. How had his children learned so much? They were only 3 years old. Maria stood up. Mr. Crane, if you'd like to join us for art time, you're very welcome. We're about to paint. Alexander looked at his expensive suit and Italian leather shoes. 3 hours ago, he'd been in a boardroom in Sao Paulo. Now he was being invited to finger paint with toddlers. I'd love that, he heard himself say. Maria smiled. Wonderful. Children, let's show Daddy where we keep the art smocks. The next hour was a revelation. Alexander sat at a child-sized table, wearing an oversized paint smock, surrounded by his children. Maria guided them through an art project, encouraging creativity while teaching colors, shapes, and patterns. Emma, tell Daddy what color you're using, Maria prompted. And I'm making a heart because hearts are for love. Emma declared. That's beautiful, Alexander said. Who are you making it for? Emma thought about it. For you, Daddy. Because Miss Maria says you love us even when you're far away. Alexander felt his throat close up. He looked at Maria, who was helping Oliver open a paint jar. She'd been telling his children that he loved them. Even though he'd been absent. Even though he'd essentially abandoned them. She'd been building a bridge between him and the children he'd run from. Lucas, what are you painting? Alexander asked his son. An airplane. Because you fly on airplanes to work. Miss Maria showed us pictures of airplanes and said that's how you travel. When I'm big, I want to ride on an airplane too. Maybe we can do that together someday, Alexander said softly. Lucas's face lit up. Really? Really? Maria caught Alexander's eye and gave him an approving nod. After art time, she led the children through cleanup, teaching responsibility and teamwork. Then it was snack time with fruit and cheese cut into, Alexander noticed, various shapes. During snack, Maria sat beside Alexander while the children ate. She spoke quietly so only he could hear. They're wonderful children, Mr. Crane. Bright, curious, loving. They ask about you often. I show them pictures, tell them stories. They know you're their father and that you love them. How do they know that? Alexander asked bitterly. I'm never here. Maria looked at him with compassion, not judgment. Because I tell them. Because it's true, even if you struggle to show it. You're grieving. I understand that. But they need you, Mr. Crane. Not your money or your staff. You. Alexander nodded, unable to speak. After snack, Maria organized a reading circle. Each child picked a book, and they took turns reading to the group. Even though they couldn't actually read yet, they'd memorized stories from repetition and told them using the pictures. Alexander listened to Oliver recite, where the wild things are almost word perfect. Watched Emma turn the pages of Goodnight Moon and name everything in the pictures. Saw Lucas enthusiastically act out the very hungry caterpillar. They were brilliant. His children were absolutely brilliant. And he'd missed it all. Around 10 a.m., Maria announced it was outdoor time. She led the children to the mansion's gardens, where she'd set up a small playground area and a learning garden. We planted vegetables 8 weeks ago, Maria explained to Alexander as they walked. The children had been caring for them, learning about responsibility, nature, and where food comes from. Sure enough, there was a small fenced garden plot with tiny tomato plants, lettuce, and herbs growing. Each plant had a marker with a child's name. Emma's tomatoes are doing so well. Maria praised. You've been watering them every day like you promised. Lucas, your lettuce is getting big. And Oliver, look at all the basil growing. The children beamed with pride, showing their father their plants. Alexander knelt in the dirt in his expensive suit, not caring, examining the vegetables with genuine interest. This is incredible, he said. You grew these yourselves? We did, Emma said proudly. Miss Maria says if we take care of things, they grow big and strong. Like us. Alexander looked at Maria. She'd taught his children about nurturing, responsibility, and growth. Lessons he desperately needed to learn himself. They spent 2 hours outside. Maria organized games that were educational but fun. Red light, green light taught colors and impulse control. Simon Says developed listening skills and body awareness. Tag built gross motor skills and social interaction. Alexander played too, running around with his children for the first time in their lives. He was out of breath and sweating through his dress shirt, but he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so alive. At lunchtime, they went back inside. Maria had prepared a healthy, balanced meal that the children helped set the table for. They sat together, and Maria led them in saying what they were grateful for before eating. I'm grateful Daddy is home, Oliver said simply. Emma and Lucas echoed the sentiment. Alexander felt tears threaten again. I'm grateful for all of you, he managed to say. And for Miss Maria, who takes such good care of you. Maria smiled warmly. It's my privilege. After lunch was quiet time. Maria explained that the children still napped most days, which gave them rest and gave her time to prepare afternoon activities. Would you like to help put them down for naps? Maria asked Alexander. I don't know how, he admitted. Maria's smile was kind. I'll show you. It's not complicated. Just love and patience. Led him to the children's bedrooms. Each child had their own room, decorated thoughtfully with their interests. Emma's room had butterflies and flowers. Oliver's had dinosaurs. Lucas's had trucks and construction vehicles. Maria had clearly spent time making each space special and personal. They started with Emma. Maria demonstrated the routine. Change into pajama pants, use the potty, brush teeth, pick out a book, get into bed. Emma likes her unicorn blanket, Maria explained, tucking it around the little girl. And she sleeps with her teddy bear on the right side because she likes to cuddle him with her right hand. Such specific knowledge. Maria knew every detail of these children's lives. She read Emma a short story, then kissed her forehead. Sweet dreams, my love. Sweet dreams, Miss Maria, Emma said drowsily. Then she looked at Alexander, suddenly shy again. Daddy, will you be here when I wake up? Alexander's heart clenched. Yes, baby. I'll be here. Emma smiled and closed her eyes. They repeated similar routines for Lucas and Oliver. By the time all three were sleeping, Alexander was overwhelmed with emotion. You know everything about them, he said to Maria as they quietly left the rooms. Every preference, every habit, every need. How? Maria looked at him seriously. Because I pay attention, Mr. Crane. Because I love them. Because that's what children deserve. Someone who sees them, really sees them, and learns who they are. Alexander followed Maria downstairs. She made tea, and they sat in the kitchen while the children slept. I need to know, Alexander said. What else have I missed? What else are they learning? Maria pulled out a notebook. I keep daily records of their development. Would you like to see? For the next hour, Maria showed Alexander detailed notes on his children's progress. Academic milestones, social development, emotional growth, physical abilities. Everything documented with love and care. They know their colors, shapes, can count to 20. They're learning letters and can recognize their own names in print. They understand basic emotional vocabulary, happy, sad, angry, scared. They're learning empathy through practice and modeling. She showed him photos on her phone. The children playing together, building blocks, doing art projects, reading, exploring outside. A documented life that Alexander had missed entirely. They're also learning critical thinking, Maria continued. I don't just tell them answers. I ask questions. What do you think? Why did that happen? How could we solve this problem? They're learning to think, not just memorize. Alexander looked at this woman who'd done more for his children in 6 months than he'd done in 3 years. Why? He asked. Why do you care so much? It's just a job. Maria set down her tea and looked at him directly. Mr. Crane, it's never just a job when children are involved. These 3 precious souls didn't ask to be born. They didn't choose to lose their mother or have a father consumed by grief. They deserve someone who will show up for them, love them, teach them, help them become whoever they're meant to be. Her voice was gentle but firm. I care because they're remarkable human beings. Because every child deserves to be cherished. And because, she paused, because I know what it's like to grow up feeling invisible. Alexander absorbed this. You said you weren't here to judge me. I'm not, Maria confirmed. Grief is complicated. Everyone handles loss differently. But Mr. Crane, your children are growing up. Every day you miss is a day you'll never get back. They won't be small forever. Alexander nodded, tears flowing freely now. I don't know how to do this. How to be their father. I look at them and I see Caroline, and it hurts so much. Maria reached across the table and gently touched his hand. Then see her as a gift, not a loss. She gave you these 3 incredible children. Honor her memory by loving them, by being present for them. That's what she would want. Alexander knew she was right. Caroline would be horrified by how he'd abandoned their children. She would want him to be the father these kids deserved. Will you help me? Alexander asked. I want to be better. I want to know them. I want to be their father, not just the man who pays the bills. But I don't know where to start. Maria smiled. You already started, Mr. Crane. You came home. You stayed. You played with them. You tucked Emma into bed. That's the beginning. It's not enough, Alexander said. I've missed 3 years. Then don't miss another day, Maria said simply. Start now. Be present from this moment forward. Learn who they are. Let them know you. Build a relationship. It's not too late. Alexander sat in his kitchen, still wearing his paint-smudged art smock over his expensive suit, and made a decision. He pulled out his phone and called his assistant. Cancel all my appointments for the next month. Tell the board I'm taking a leave of absence. Family emergency. Sir? His assistant said, shocked. Is everything okay? Actually, Alexander said, looking at Maria's encouraging smile, everything's about to be okay. For the first time in 3 years. He hung up and looked at Maria. Teach me. Teach me how to be their father. I'll do whatever it takes. Maria nodded. Then let's start with this. When they wake up from their nap, you're going to lead snack time. I'll guide you, but you'll do it. You'll talk to them, listen to them, be present with them. Can you do that? Alexander took a deep breath. Yes, I can do that. Upstairs, 3 children slept peacefully, unaware that their lives were about to change. That the father they barely knew was finally coming home. Not just to the house, but to them. That the family fractured by grief was about to begin healing. Alexander sat in the kitchen with Maria, learning everything he could about his children, preparing for the moment they'd wake up. For the first time since Caroline died, he felt something he'd thought was lost forever. Not hope that the pain would disappear, but hope that life could still be full. That love could still exist. That being a father wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up. Maria had shown him that in a single morning. Now he had to prove he could do the same. The afternoon would bring new challenges, more learning, more opportunities to connect with his children. And Alexander was ready. Because sometimes, coming home without warning is exactly what you need to see what you've been missing. To find what matters most. And to discover that the help you hired became the hero who saved your family. Maria hadn't just cared for his children. She'd kept them whole while he fell apart. She'd loved them when he couldn't. She'd taught them, nurtured them, and prepared them for the day their father would finally see them. That day had come. And Alexander would spend the rest of his life being grateful for the maid who did far more than her job description. Who loved his children like they were her own. who became the bridge between a broken father and the family he needed to rebuild. The children woke from their nap at 2:30 p.m., right on schedule as Maria had predicted. Alexander heard their voices calling for her, and his heart clenched. They called for Maria, not for him. He was a stranger in his own home. "Remember," Maria said gently as they headed upstairs, "don't expect too much too fast. Let them come to you at their own pace. No pressure. Just presence." Alexander nodded, nervous in a way he'd never been in any boardroom. They found the triplets in various stages of waking up. Emma was already out of bed, rubbing her eyes. Lucas was still under his covers, and Oliver was sitting up, looking around groggily. "Good afternoon, my loves," Maria said warmly. "Did you have good naps?" "Yes, Miss Maria," Emma said, then noticed Alexander. "Daddy's still here." There was wonder in her voice, as if she'd assumed he'd disappear. "I'm still here," Alexander confirmed, kneeling down to her level. "I told you I would be." Lucas scrambled out of bed. "Are we doing something fun?" "Actually," Maria said, "Daddy is going to help with snack time today. Would you like that?" Three small faces looked uncertain. Oliver voiced what they were all thinking. "Does Daddy know how to do snack time?" Alexander felt the question like a knife. His 3-year-old son doubted whether he could handle something as basic as giving them a snack. "Miss Maria is going to teach me," Alexander said honestly. "I want to learn how to do things with you. Will you help me?" Emma, always the most affectionate, reached for his hand. "Hey, Daddy. I'll help you." Lucas and Oliver followed as they all went downstairs to the kitchen. Maria had prepared everything in advance: apple slices, cheese cubes, crackers, and small cups of milk. But she didn't just hand them out. She turned it into a lesson. "Mr. Crane," Maria said formally, then caught herself. "I mean, Daddy," she smiled at the children, "can you ask each child what color plate they'd like?" Alexander looked at the stack of colorful plates. "Emma, what color would you like?" "Purple, please." Emma said. "Good job using please," Alexander praised, handing her a purple plate. He went through Lucas and Oliver, who picked blue and green respectively. Maria nodded approvingly. "Now, let them serve themselves. It teaches independence and portion control. Ask each child what they'd like and how many pieces." Alexander watched as his children carefully selected their own food, counting pieces, making choices. Lucas took 3 cheese cubes, then changed his mind and added 2 more. "How many do you have now, Lucas?" Alexander asked, remembering how Maria had turned everything into learning. Lucas counted carefully. 5. "Very good. You added 2 more to 3 and got 5. That's addition." Lucas beamed, proud of himself. As they ate, Maria coached Alexander on conversation techniques. Ask open-ended questions. Not, "Did you have fun today?" but, "What was your favorite part of today?" Alexander tried it. "Oliver, what was your favorite part of today so far?" Oliver thought seriously, chewing his apple. "When we played rectangle bodies. That was funny." "It was funny," Alexander agreed. "Emma, what about you?" "I liked painting the heart for you, Daddy. Red is the color of love." Alexander felt his throat tighten. "I love my heart. I'm going to keep it forever." After snack, Maria suggested outdoor time again. They have energy to burn after napping. Plus, the afternoon light is perfect for learning shadows. In the garden, Maria showed Alexander how to make the learning experiential. "See how the sun creates shadows? Let's talk about that. Who can show me their shadow?" The children jumped around, watching their shadows move. "Why does the shadow copy us?" Oliver asked. Maria looked at Alexander, encouraging him to answer. "Well," Alexander said, thinking, "the shadow appears because our body blocks the sunlight. The sun's light can't go through us, so it creates a dark spot on the ground that's shaped like us." 3 small faces looked at him with wonder. "You're smart, Daddy," Emma declared. Alexander laughed. "Miss Maria is teaching me, just like she teaches you." They played shadow tag, made shadow puppets with their hands, and traced each other's shadows with chalk on the patio. Learning and play seamlessly integrated. As the afternoon progressed, Alexander began to relax. The children were warming up to him, especially Emma, who kept grabbing his hand. Lucas challenged him to races across the lawn. Oliver showed him the vegetable garden in detail, explaining everything Maria had taught him about plants. Around 4 p.m., Maria announced it was bath time. "This is usually a two-person job," she told Alexander. "I'll take Emma, you take the boys? I'll be right next door if you need help." Alexander's eyes widened. "Bath time? I've never—" "You'll be fine," Maria assured him. "Just supervise, make sure they wash properly, keep them safe. I'll walk you through it." Alexander found himself in the bathroom with Oliver and Lucas, feeling completely out of his depth. But Maria called instructions from the adjacent bathroom where she had Emma. "Water temperature. Test it with your wrist, should feel warm but not hot. Put in a little bubble bath. The kids love bubbles. Then supervise while they wash themselves. They're pretty independent but need reminders about ears and behind the neck." Alexander followed the instructions, and to his surprise, his sons were delighted. "Bubbles!" Lucas shouted, playing with the foam. "Daddy, look, I made a beard." Oliver was more methodical, carefully washing himself with a soapy cloth. "Miss Maria taught us to wash in order. Arms, legs, tummy, back, private parts, then face and ears last." "That's very organized," Alexander said, impressed. As he helped rinse Oliver's hair, being careful to keep soap out of his eyes, Alexander felt something shift inside him. This was fatherhood. Not the abstract concept of providing or protecting. This was the actual work of caring for another human being. The hands-on, present, attention-required work of raising children. It was harder than running a company. And it mattered more. After baths, the children dressed in comfortable clothes for the evening. Maria had laid out outfits that matched each child's personality. Emma's had butterflies, Lucas's had trucks, Oliver's had dinosaurs. "Dinner is at 5:30, Maria explained. "We eat early because they go to bed at 7. The evening routine is important for good sleep." At dinner, Alexander helped serve the meal Maria had prepared: chicken, rice, steamed vegetables, and fruit. Again, everything was made into learning. "How many pieces of chicken do you want? Let's count them. What colors are the vegetables? Can you eat a rainbow?" The children chattered throughout the meal, more comfortable with Alexander now. They told him about their days, their friends, stuffed animals mostly, their dreams. Lucas wanted to be a construction worker. Emma wanted to be a veterinarian. Oliver wanted to be a scientist. "Those are wonderful goals," Alexander said. "You can be anything you want to be." After dinner was cleanup time. The children had small jobs, clearing their plates, wiping the table with cloths, putting napkins in the trash. Maria had taught them responsibility. Then came the evening routine that Alexander had never witnessed before. Family time, from 6 to 6:45 p.m. Maria explained that this was for bonding, playing together, reading, or just being together without screens or distractions. "Usually I do this with them," Maria said. "But tonight you should. I'll observe unless you need help." Alexander sat on the floor in the playroom with his 3 children, feeling awkward and unsure. "What should we do?" "Whatever they want," Maria said from her chair in the corner. "Let them lead." Emma immediately grabbed a puzzle. "Let's do puzzles, Daddy." It was a simple wooden puzzle with about 12 pieces, but working on it together, talking about the picture, celebrating when pieces fit, it was perfect. Lucas brought out building blocks. "Can you make a tower?" Together they built increasingly elaborate structures, learning about balance and gravity when towers fell. Oliver wanted to read. He brought over The Very Hungry Caterpillar and climbed into Alexander's lap. Alexander's arms instinctively wrapped around his son, and he felt the small warm weight of the child against his chest. His child. His son. Caroline's son. He read the story, and Oliver corrected him when he skipped a word, proving he knew the book by heart. Emma and Lucas eventually joined them, snuggling close, and Alexander found himself reading 4 more books with 3 children pressed against him. This, he realized, was what he'd been missing. Not just the activities or the learning. This physical closeness. This warmth. This connection. At 6:45, Maria gently announced bedtime routine. Pajamas, teeth, potty, then bed. It's a process. Alexander helped each child into pajamas. Supervised teeth brushing, which was hilarious as all three tried to show him how well they could do it, resulting in toothpaste everywhere. Made sure everyone used the potty. Then came the part he'd never done. Tucking them in. Maria showed him Emma's room first. She likes 2 stories, her unicorn blanket, teddy on the right side, nightlight on, door open halfway, and a forehead kiss. So specific. So known. Alexander read Emma 2 stories, tucked the unicorn blanket around her, positioned Teddy properly, and kissed her forehead. Good night, baby girl. Emma looked up at him with those eyes so much like Caroline's. Daddy, are you going away again? Alexander's heart broke. Not for a while, sweetheart. I'm going to be home more. I promise. Good, Emma said, satisfied. I like when you're here. Lucas's routine was similar but slightly different. 1 story, blue blanket, stuffed truck, nightlight, door almost closed. Lucas asked a question that cut deep. Daddy, do you love us? More than anything in the world, Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion. Then why did you go away? Lucas asked simply. Alexander looked at Maria, standing in the doorway, her eyes compassionate. She nodded, encouraging him to be honest. Because I was very sad when your mommy died, Alexander explained carefully. And I didn't know how to be happy again. So I worked a lot because work made me forget how sad I was. But that was wrong. I should have been with you. Lucas processed this. Are you still sad? Sometimes, Alexander admitted. But being with you makes me happy. You and Emma and Oliver make me very happy. Lucas seemed satisfied with this answer. You can stay here and be happy with us. Thank you, buddy, Alexander said, kissing his forehead. Oliver's routine was the longest. 2 stories, green blanket, 3 stuffed dinosaurs arranged in specific positions, nightlight, door open all the way, and he needed back rubs to fall asleep. As Alexander rubbed small circles on Oliver's back, the little boy talked sleepily. Miss Maria says Mommy is in heaven watching us. Is that true? Yes, Alexander said. Your mommy loved you very much. She's always watching over you. Do you think she's sad we don't know her? Oliver asked. Alexander felt tears fall. No, baby. I think she's happy that you're healthy and loved. That's what mommies want. Miss Maria says Mommy would want you to be happy too. Not just working all the time. Alexander smiled through tears. Miss Maria is very wise. She is, Oliver agreed, yawning. I love Miss Maria. And I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Oliver. So much. After all 3 were asleep, Alexander found Maria in the kitchen, preparing breakfast ingredients for the morning. You prepped the night before? Alexander asked. It makes mornings easier. Plus, I try to make things from scratch when possible. Healthier, and it teaches the children where food comes from. Alexander sat at the kitchen table, exhausted but fulfilled. I had no idea. Any of this. I thought caring for children was just keeping them safe and fed. I didn't realize it was teaching, learning, bonding, routines, attention to every little detail. Maria joined him with 2 cups of tea. Most people don't realize until they do it. Parenthood is the hardest job there is. It's physically exhausting, emotionally draining, and mentally challenging. But it's also the most important. Why didn't the other nannies do this? Alexander asked. Why weren't they teaching them like you do? Maria considered her answer carefully. Some nannies are caregivers, which is fine. They keep children safe and fed. Others are educators who see children as students. I try to be both, but also something more. I try to see children as complete human beings who deserve to be known, understood, and helped to become their best selves. She sipped her tea. Also, frankly, most nannies don't stay long enough to build this kind of relationship. The triplets and I have had 6 months together. That's time to learn each other, build trust, and create these routines. The others left too quickly. Why didn't you leave? Alexander asked. Surely working for an absent father in a lonely mansion isn't ideal. Maria smiled. Because of them. Emma, Lucas, and Oliver. They needed someone to stay. Someone to be consistent. Someone to love them even when their father couldn't. She looked at Alexander kindly. And I believed that one day, you'd come back to them. I was right. Alexander shook his head in wonder. You're extraordinary. You know that? You've done more for my children than I ever could. That's not true, Maria corrected gently. I've done what I could while you were gone. But Mr. Crane, Alexander, they need their father. Not a nanny, no matter how good. They need you. I can teach them shapes and colors and manners. But only you can teach them who they are, where they come from, what it means to be a Crane. Only you can give them that piece of their identity. I don't know how, Alexander admitted. I've spent all day with them and I barely scratched the surface of knowing them. Then spend tomorrow with them. And the day after that. And the day after that. Maria's voice was firm but encouraging. Every day you'll know them a little better. Every day they'll trust you a little more. That's how relationships are built. Time and presence. Alexander nodded. Will you help me? Not just today, but ongoing? Will you teach me how to be the father they deserve? Of course, Maria said. That's what I'm here for. Not to replace you, but to support you in being their parent. Over the next few weeks, Alexander's life transformed completely. He didn't go back to work. He stayed home with his children, learning their rhythms, their personalities, their needs. Maria taught him everything. Morning routines, educational activities, discipline techniques, comfort strategies, bedtime rituals. Alexander was a quick study in business, and he applied that same intelligence to learning parenthood. But more than the practical skills, Maria taught him to be present, to put away his phone during family time, to really listen when his children spoke, to notice the small things, how Emma twisted her hair when she was tired, how Lucas got quiet when he was overwhelmed, how Oliver needed extra time to process new information. She taught him that every child was different and needed different things. That what worked for Emma might not work for Lucas. That flexibility was as important as routine. That love looked different for each child. Alexander started joining Maria for the entire day, every day. He was there for breakfast, for learning time, for outdoor play, for lunch, for naps, for snacks, for dinner, for bedtime. He became a fixture in his children's lives instead of an absence. The children's attachment to him grew. At first, they still preferred Maria for comfort or help. But gradually, they started turning to Alexander too. Emma would climb into his lap for stories. Lucas would ask him to play blocks. Oliver would want him to tuck him in. 2 months after Alexander came home, something remarkable happened. Oliver fell and scraped his knee in the garden. His immediate cry was, "Daddy." Not Miss Maria. "Daddy." Alexander rushed over, scooped up his son, examined the scrape, cleaned it gently, applied a bandage, and kissed it better. All things Maria had taught him. "All better?" Alexander asked. Oliver nodded, hugging his father. "You're a good daddy." Alexander looked at Maria over Oliver's head. She was smiling with tears in her eyes. They both knew what this moment meant. He'd become their father. Not just in name, but in their hearts. Maria began gradually stepping back, giving Alexander more primary responsibility. She was still there, still teaching and supporting, but Alexander was now capable of handling the children independently. 3 months after coming home, Alexander called a family meeting with Maria. The children were napping. "I've been thinking," Alexander said, "about the future, about what's best for the children." Maria's face was carefully neutral. "Okay. I'm not going back to full-time work," Alexander said. "I've appointed a CEO to run the company. I'll stay on as chairman, handle major decisions, but I'm not doing the day-to-day anymore. I'm not traveling. My priority is the triplets." "That's wonderful," Maria said, clearly pleased. "But that means," Alexander continued, "that they don't need full-time childcare anymore. They need their father, which I'm finally able to be. So I need to discuss your position." Maria's face fell slightly. She'd known this was coming. If Alexander was home, she wasn't needed in the same way. I understand, she said professionally. I'll stay as long as you need me to transition. I'm not firing you, Alexander interrupted. I'm promoting you. Maria looked confused. Promoting me? You're not a nanny anymore. You're family. Alexander pulled out an envelope. This is a new contract. You're now officially the children's educator and my parenting advisor. You'll work with them on their education, help me navigate parenting challenges, and be there for all of us. It's a permanent position, significantly higher salary, full benefits, and you're moving from the staff quarters to the guest house on the property. Maria opened the envelope, her hands shaking. The salary was triple what she'd been making. This is too much, she whispered. It's not nearly enough for what you've done, Alexander said. You saved my family, Maria. You kept my children whole when I was broken. You loved them when I couldn't. You taught me how to be a father. How do you put a price on that? Tears streamed down Maria's face. I just did my job. You did so much more than that. Alexander's voice was firm. You became part of our family. The children love you. I respect and admire you. We need you. Not as an employee, but as family. Will you stay? Maria nodded, unable to speak. Alexander hugged her, something he'd never done before. Thank you for not giving up on us. As the months continued, the household settled into a new normal. Alexander was the primary parent, but Maria was there to support, teach, and help. She educated the triplets, introducing more advanced concepts as they were ready. She advised Alexander on parenting issues. And most importantly, she loved the children as she always had. Alexander watched his children thrive under this new arrangement. With both him and Maria present, they had security, consistency, and love. They grew in confidence, intelligence, and emotional health. One evening, 6 months after Alexander had come home, he was reading bedtime stories to Emma when she said something that made him freeze. Daddy, I wish we had a mommy like other kids. Alexander's heart clenched. You do have a mommy, sweetheart. She's in heaven. Her name was Caroline, and she loved you very much. I know, Emma said, but I wish I had a mommy here. Someone like Miss Maria. Alexander was very careful with his next words. What do you mean, sweetheart? Miss Maria takes care of us like a mommy. She loves us like a mommy. And she makes you happy. I see you smile when she's here. Out of the mouths of babes. Alexander had been trying not to acknowledge what he'd been feeling for weeks, maybe months. Somewhere along the way, his respect and gratitude for Maria had become something more. He looked forward to their conversations after the children were asleep. He noticed when she laughed. He valued her opinions on everything, not just parenting. He admired her intelligence, her compassion, her strength. He'd been falling in love with her. And apparently his 3-year-old daughter had noticed. I love Miss Maria too, Alexander said carefully. She's very special to our family. You should marry her, Emma said with the simple logic of a child. Then she'd be our mommy and stay forever. Alexander kissed Emma's forehead. It's not quite that simple, baby. But I'm glad you love Miss Maria. Now sleep okay? After Emma was asleep, Alexander found Maria in her new space in the guest house, reviewing educational materials for next week. Can we talk? Alexander asked. Maria looked up, concerned. Is everything okay? Emma said something tonight. Alexander sat down. She said she wishes you were her mother. Maria's face showed surprise and emotion. Oh, I hope I haven't overstepped. I never meant to. You haven't, Alexander assured her. Maria, these past 6 months have been the best of my life. Not just because I've reconnected with my children, but because of you. You've taught me to be a father. You've been patient with my mistakes. You've celebrated my successes. You've become essential to our family. He took a breath. And somewhere along the way, I've developed feelings for you that go beyond professional respect or gratitude. Maria's eyes widened. Alexander, I'm not asking you to respond right now, Alexander said quickly. I know this is complicated. I'm your employer, technically, though I've never thought of you that way. And I know that Caroline will always be the children's mother. No one could ever replace her. I would never try to, Maria said softly. I loved Caroline too, Alexander continued. She was my wife, the mother of my children, and I'll always cherish her memory. But I also know she wouldn't want me to stop living. She'd want the children to have a family full of love. And Maria, what I feel for you is real. You're brilliant, compassionate, strong, and beautiful. You've given my children everything they needed. You've given me a second chance at being a father. And he paused. I'm falling in love with you. Maria's eyes filled with tears. I care about you too. So much. But Alexander, we need to be careful. The children's well-being has to come first. We can't rush into anything that might disrupt the stability they've finally found. I agree completely, Alexander said. That's why I'm not asking you to marry me right now. I'm asking if you'd be open to exploring what this could become. Slowly, carefully, with the children's needs as our priority. Maria smiled through her tears. Yes, I'd like that. Over the next year, Alexander and Maria dated the way careful, responsible adults with 3 children do. Slowly. Coffee conversations after the kids were asleep. Walks in the garden while the children napped. Getting to know each other as partners, not just parent and educator. The children adjusted gradually. Maria was already a fixture in their lives, and Alexander was now fully present. Having them become romantic partners happened so naturally that the triplets barely noticed the shift. 2 years after Alexander had walked in on that fateful morning, he proposed to Maria properly. With the children's help, because they were part of this decision. Miss Maria, Oliver said seriously, holding out a ring box, Daddy wants to know if you'll marry us. Maria laughed and cried simultaneously. All of you? All of us, Emma confirmed. We want you to be our mommy for real. Please say yes, Lucas added. Maria looked at Alexander, who was kneeling alongside the children. They're right, Alexander said. We all want you. We're not complete without you. Will you marry us? Yes, Maria said, pulling all 4 of them into a hug. Yes, yes, yes. They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony in the mansion gardens. Emma was the flower girl. Lucas and Oliver were ring bearers. And Caroline's photo sat on a chair of honor, because she was part of their story too. During his vows, Alexander said, Maria, you didn't just become my wife today. You became my children's mother, which is the greatest gift anyone could give me. You saw us when we were broken and you helped put us back together. You taught me that love doesn't replace loss, it grows alongside it. That moving forward doesn't mean forgetting the past. Thank you for saving my family. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for becoming ours. Maria's vows were equally emotional. Alexander, Emma, Lucas, Oliver, you 4 are my heart. I've loved these children from the moment I met them. And I've loved you, Alexander, from the moment you came home and chose to stay. Families aren't just made by biology. They're made by choice, commitment, and love. I choose you. I commit to you. And I will love you all for the rest of my life. The triplets cheered. Emma yelled, Now you're our mommy. Lucas added, Forever. And Oliver, always thoughtful, said to Alexander, You did it, Daddy. You made us complete. Years later, Alexander would reflect on that morning when he'd come home without warning. The morning that changed everything. If the Sao Paulo meeting hadn't ended early, he might have missed another year of his children's lives. Or more. He might have let grief consume him until there was nothing left. He might have lost his children entirely, not to death, but to absence. But he had come home. He had walked in on Maria teaching his children with love and dedication. He had seen what he'd been missing. And he'd made the choice to change. Maria had been the catalyst, but Alexander had done the work. He'd learned to be present, to be a father, to let himself love again. To honor Caroline's memory by living fully, not hiding from life. The billionaire who came home without warning found more than he expected. He found his children. He found himself. He found love. He found a family. And he found that sometimes, the help you hire to care for your children ends up caring for your whole heart. If this story touched you, subscribe to Every Mind Stories for more powerful true tales. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances and found families. Comment, presence is everything. If you know that showing up is the greatest gift we can give, share this with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late to come home, to connect, to love, to be present for the people who need you most. Because sometimes the greatest wealth isn't measured in billions. It's measured in bedtime stories, art projects, garden walks, and the words, "I love you, Daddy," from children who finally know you're there to stay. Alexander came home without warning and found his maid teaching his triplets. What froze him wasn't shock or anger. It was recognition. Recognition of what love looked like, what dedication meant, what his children needed, and the understanding that the most important decision of his life was whether to walk away again or finally stay. He stayed, and in staying, he found everything that truly mattered. Thank you for watching Every Mind Stories. Remember, success means nothing if you're not present for the people you love. Come home. Not just physically, but emotionally. Show up. Pay attention. Be there. That's what changes everything.